All right, Kalie McCrystal, welcome to the Steep Stuff podcast. How's it going?
Great. Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm so excited to finally chat with you. It's crazy, like when I started doing some research into this episode, you have such an impressive running resume that I was like, damn, like how did I not have you on the podcast before? So you've managed to fly under the radar, but up until today, now we've got you on, and we're gonna ask you 10,000 questions. So super excited to have you on and finally have a conversation.
Yeah. Thanks so much. I do kind of fly under the radar. I've heard that a few times. So,
With you, I mean, honestly, I'm not joking, and we'll get to this throughout the show. Like with your resume, like you should be one of the biggest names in the sport. Like it is, I cannot believe some of the stuff that you've done. I'm like, wow, all right, so it's definitely stoked. You're just getting back from a big trip down south to South America to race, where you won and took the course record at Four Refugios. I mean, I definitely got to get the recap from you and hear how your trip went and just that experience overall.
yeah, that was not a part of the season plan until about a month ago to go down there. I had looked at the Skyrunner list of races, and this one stood out mostly because it required a helmet for the entire race, which automatically piques my interest. But it was so early in the season that I kind of wrote it off. We always have snow here in Canada, and I didn't think I could make it work. And then got a bit of an offer for a bit of travel funding to go down there, and the timing worked really well. And I just kind of thought, all right, I've got 3 weeks. I can probably panic train enough to get fit enough to compete at least. And I've always wanted to go down to Argentina and Patagonia, and really glad that I did because it was, I would say, the best race that I have run, both from a course and an organization perspective. Obviously, the result helps with that as well. But it was a great experience and a nice kickoff to the season, to give me a bit of confidence heading into everything else.
Yeah. I mean, amazing performance, dominant as well.
Thanks.
New course record, dude. That course looked legit, like full on helmet. Talk about that. Was it like, is that the first race? I don't know. I couldn't like, I poked around a little bit in some of your other races. I didn't see if you've done Kima before. That's the only other race I know of where you have to wear a helmet the whole time. So how was that as far as the whole helmet situation?
Yeah, I'm doing Kima this year, so we'll have that experience. But Greenia is another one. It doesn't require helmets the entire time. Classic Italy, they like helicopter in everybody's helmets halfway through the race and hand it to you as you walk by. But that one had about 8K of helmets. There's a couple other races that have crampons required, so I'm no stranger to some of the mountaineering equipment being required. I think I thought the helmet would be more annoying than it actually was throughout. It was totally fine, to be honest. And I went scrambling up in the mountains, just some like scrambling light soloing the next day, and the rock quality there is quite poor. As the climbers would say, a lot of choss. So after doing that, I was actually like, okay, I really get why we were wearing helmets the whole time, because the overhead risk was pretty high, and everything was doing was really steep and crumbly. So yeah, kind of a fun little add on.
How difficult was it? I mean, you said you kind of like panic trained to get yourself ready for this 3 or 4 weeks to a month to get yourself peaking for, I wouldn't even say peaking, but to get yourself in the right fitness level to perform at a race like this. How is it where you live in Squamish? I know sometimes there's some snow up high, sometimes not. I know from what I've looked at in your experience, there's a lot of skiing to do. Obviously, not too far in Whistler. What does your build look like so far in this off season, kind of preparing to get ready for this race?
My build in the off season consisted of quite a bit of ski touring. So, my big days up until a month ago had been almost exclusively on skis, which is great in some ways and not great in other ways for running. And then when I decided to go to this race, panic training involved just getting a couple big vert days. So yeah, there was snow at maybe 800 meters, but I just like stacked some steep climbs. We have so much amazing terrain in Squamish on unsanctioned mountain bike trails and unsanctioned trials trails that are super steep, super technical, and that's sort of where I live in the trails in Squamish. It's not where a lot of people are running, but it's where I run. And so I just had long runs, doing a ton of vert, tried to do some steep downhills to condition my quads a bit. And then my sort of like secret weapon training is weighted hiking, but it just means carrying my paraglider up hills and um, getting some extra uphill training that way. So between skiing, running down mountain bike trails, and paragliding, that was basically my build for Quattro Refugios.
Damn, I'm impressed. That's amazing. We'll talk about. I almost pivoted into Whistler, and I feel like that's a whole nother conversation we'll get into, or not Whistler. I'm sorry, into Squamish, because that's a whole nother ask. But I want to talk a little bit more about the race as far as how it played out for you. I felt like, and I wasn't there, obviously, from as someone following the race and understanding what's going on, trying to get the play-by-play, it felt very dominant. Would you say the same? Was it close at any point for you? At what point in time did you kind of maybe give me a little bit of a play-by-play? I think the audience would appreciate that, and how you were able to, get that win and how that unfolded for you.
Yeah, sure. So going in, I definitely was going for the win, and I also had a bit of a time goal in mind. Looking at this course versus some others that I've done, I thought I could probably go around 6:30, and one of the Skyrunner media guys who had been there before said, "There's no way women will go under 7 hours. It's too technical." And so I really got that in my mind from the from the beginning that I was going to go 6:30 to prove him wrong. And I do a decent amount of research into courses. Like I had looked up the Strava segments for this route, and I had kind of taken the top times from those, added them together, approximated where I thought I would be. And I went out kind of at that pace. So I knew where I wanted to be when I hit the first refuge. And when we started the race, Erin Tunn, who she doesn't race a lot, but she has the Aconcagua FKT and a lot of other FKTs kind of in Colorado and South America. She was there and she went out fairly hard as well. And I kind of made the decision early on that I wanted to be the one setting the pace. And so I kind of let us out and didn't really look back. Like I wanted to be in my rhythm. I don't get the chance a lot to lead races and set it at the tempo that I want. And so I think by the time we got to the first refuge, like 10K in, I was a couple minutes up. And then over the first pass, steep uphill, steep rocky uphill, steep scree descent, I put a decent amount more time into that lead. And from that point on, I was kind of not looking back. I knew I was like kind of hitting my time goals, and I was really focused on that. And it wasn't until, like I could keep looking back over my shoulder and I was like, okay, I don't really see anybody. But then for me, it doesn't become like, all right, foot off the gas. Like I can be just as motivated to hit a time goal and to pass men. And yeah, it wasn't until maybe 2/3 of the way into the race that I saw some of the media team from Skyrunner and was able to kind of say like, where is everybody? And at that point they were just like, we don't know, but you're far. Just keep going, and like we think you're in the top 10 overall. So for me at that point, that's like where it's super fun and you can just push yourself and not have to have the mental games going on of what do I need to do strategically to win this race. You can actually just like dial in your effort and play to your own strengths. And that's where I tend to get the most out of myself and my best performances. So it was great to have one of those races where I could really just do my best without worrying about where other people were.
I love that. It's interesting to me because leading a race is a funny thing. Some people get very anxious and they don't want to be in the lead. They'd rather sit back and make their move later on in the race and kind of wait for things to play out. Other people get very comfortable in being, especially for a race like this. This is not a 5K. This is not a 10K. It's a completely different animal. So for you to be able to just kind of get your own rhythm, if you will, up on the up and downs and in different sections of the mountain race itself, I feel like it almost plays to your strength, because then you don't have to worry about other people. You can kind of just, you can find your rhythm and just kind of jam, you know?
Yeah, I mean, for these kind of like 6 hour races, I know for me, getting to the middle of the race feeling comfortable and feeling like I have more matches to burn is how I have the most success. But, um, you know, I kind of chose pretty early on in my like trail running career that I was going to be a small fish in a big pond and race like the most competitive races I could, which puts you in a situation where, you know, you might not really be able to stick to your own personal template for the race without getting dropped off the pack or, you know, scrambled up with the men to a point where like you're just stuck in a conga line. And I think that's been something that I have struggled with, like just having the confidence to stick to my own strategy and not get caught up with like the Sarah Alonsos and the Hillary Girardis that
Yeah.
you may just have a totally different strength and strategy. So when I do get these moments where I'm like, oh, right, my strategy actually works, it's nice to go into those races then later in the season and kind of gives me the confidence to stick to my plan a bit more.
I got to ask you this because I know Erin, and I know Erin quite well. She's been on the podcast. She's a friend, former teammate. I know she races aggressive, and like I've watched her go out like aggressive. Did that kind of take you? Like, how were you able? You kind of hit on this a little bit, but how were you able to take control of the race? Because I know, just did that kind of take you back for a second? Like, I wasn't expecting that, or kind of how did those dynamics kind of play out in the beginning? I guess.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised at how hard she took it out. We were up pretty close to the front of the men and ripping pretty fast. And the camera guy from Skyrunner, who's my friend Yulin, said, you know, what the heck are you doing? And I just said, Yulin, everybody knows that every race is run in the first 5K. And we just kept going. And I don't know. I think races are a place to have fun, and at that point, I was just like, "Great, this is like we're gonna have a little battle here, and like we're fighting a little bit for who's gonna lead this race." And um, I just kind of was having a good mental day, and I was excited for it, and I just thought it's gonna be me. I'm gonna do what I need to do to hit this single track first, and like I'm gonna set my zone 2 pace in the dark on these trails that I've never run before. And if she wants to make a move, then I'll deal with that when it comes.
Okay. I like that. Interesting. I hope I want to, I got to message her and I got to tell her I want her to see her do more of these races because I'm such a fan of hers. And like, I feel like she would crush it on the Skyrunner series. Like, it's just, I don't know, it fits her style very well, which is pretty cool.
Totally.
I want to pivot a little bit. What was the feeling of elation at the finish line? This is a big win. Like, it's a big deal. How did it feel to you to get that big win, especially so early in the season? And for a lot of people, like that's how we have a lot of mutual friends apparently, but that's how I specifically found out about you was through this, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah. I was really happy to win. I was probably just as happy to have put together a good race start to finish. I think anybody that like races a lot, you have like good races and bad races, but especially on the longer ones, I find like it can be rare to put together a race where you're like, okay, I didn't have any major lows, I didn't have any major gut issues. Like, I felt good mentally, I felt good physically. Like, I wasn't, I didn't have crazy cramps or anything. And it's just so nice when you hit the finish line on one of those races and you just think, like, okay, yes, it came together and it can come together again. And so I knew that it would be a good thing for my running career to break a tape. I was more stoked, honestly. Well, more stoked is maybe an exaggeration, but I was pretty excited to be kind of fifth overall and to hit that time goal. Um, but yeah, it's for someone that 3 years ago was not really in the scene at all and was looking at these races being like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if I could just like be in the series and race with these amazing women, to getting one of those shirts and breaking the tape. It did feel like a pretty full circle moment. And people at home, people in Squamish were really stoked for me, and that felt really special that everybody was sort of behind me and saw that the journey had led me there.
I love that. Did you get to dish it back to the skyrunner guy who told you women can't run under 7 hours or something like that? Because I felt like that was a very rude comment to make.
No, it wasn't. I don't think it was rude. I think he was just trying to make sure that I had enough food.
Okay,
But
all right. Well, in that case, all right, I get it. I get it.
yeah, I say the same thing in that they do like a post race interview that they post on the Skyrunner channel, and I said something to the same effect in that interview of like, I just really wanted to prove him wrong and like go under the record. So yeah, Yulin and I are buddies, and I didn't take it personally at all, but I'll always take the opportunity to show that women can get closer to men than most people think.
Absolutely, top 5, dude. That's crazy. I
Yeah.
love that. What'd you think of like the area, like the culture, the just everything? Like it seems like such a cool just environment to play around in.
Yeah, Bariloche was amazing, actually. There's not many places in the world that I would consider living, and Bariloche was one of them now. The people were great, super friendly. It has so many outdoor activities, both winter and summer. That Quattro Refugios route, actually, you can ski tour it as well. So that's pretty sweet. This like hut to hut system down there in Argentina. The food was good. You've got like the water right there, so it kind of reminded me a little bit of Canada. And yeah, definitely. I know lots of people went to like the UTMB Bariloche, and I think it was November as well, and loved it. So totally would recommend the area for sightseeing, running, or for racing. And the community that organizes it is also really great. Like, it was a very well organized and well supported race.
I love that. That's cool. Yeah, I mean, I hope more people get to go experience, races like that. Because Bariloche, I mean, up until it might have been the UTMB race, I really hadn't heard of it. I mean, I didn't really know much about the South American, running scene in general. And the more of these races that pop up, especially from the Skyrunner series, I'm just like, wow, like there's so many different cultures and experiences and just things to go check out, outside of our normal bubble of racing, which is usually what? The Mountain West or Europe, more or less. And, there's so much, it's a big world out there, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think a big reason that like I travel a lot for racing is because I think it gives you this interesting view into the culture of a place. Like, if you go and race in Switzerland, that's a very different experience than racing in Italy, is a very different experience than racing in Japan or Argentina. And it gives you this insight into these little mountain communities and just sort of how society functions in a little microcosm that I think is really cool. Um, yeah, so that's kind of like, I think, a good reason to travel generally in these places, but Argentina was a good one for sure.
Yeah. No, it's high on my list. All right, I want to change gears. I want to go back to the beginning of your story. Like, I'm so curious, like how you found this like sky running situation, like what your background in sport is. So I'm gonna give you the mic to just like tell me your story. I'm so interested, like start to finish, to hear from how you got to where you're at now.
Yeah, it's been a unique journey, I would say, compared to a lot of people. I grew up like as an athlete for sure. I was a runner when I was younger, and then, um, like I ran kind of provincial level, which would be like state level in the States, into like the end of what you guys would have as middle school. And then I had this injury that went on for a really long time. It ended up being like an undiagnosed stress fracture in my tibial plateau. And I went from like surgeon to surgeon, and everybody was like, you need to stop running. You can't have this as your sport. You're going to do serious damage. You can't do this anymore. And I played soccer, and my primary sport was actually swimming. So I swam for a number of years, always was really active, tried to start back running a few times, and just couldn't beat this like injury that nobody really knew what it was at the time. Eventually in university, like I was just kind of pretty normal, like played rec sports, like was lifeguarding a lot, working a lot. And eventually I found some like treatments that worked. I had given it enough time and was able to start getting back to running. And even then it was just kind of a hobby. Like I did some triathlons, some half marathons, a couple marathons, pretty like decent but average, I would say. Um, and then moved to Squamish in 2019, started trail running a bit more, found that it was way easier on my body. I could do a lot more of it without having injuries crop up. Um, and then late in 2021, so post COVID, a couple local races came back, and I had been, running and like taking a few segments around, and was like, oh my God, finally I can like get into this community and just experience it. I was so starved for connection from COVID. So those were two of Gary Robbins' races, the WAM at the time 13K and Squamish 50. And I came second I like volunteered from like 5 to 9 a.m. in the morning, and then like hopped into the 13K. And Janelle Haslet was racing, who I was like at the time kind of fangirling over. And I ended up coming second in that race, and was like, and just barely like outkicked Janelle at the finish, and was like, okay, this went better than expected. That was fun. And then hopped into the Squamish 50, which that year was at the end of October. And it was at the end of October. It was our atmospheric river year. So there were crazy rains, and it was really cold. And I was through halfway in second or third, and then got completely hypothermic and got like pulled off the course at about 40K. So, but
sorry, I lost
despite that, I was like, yeah, sorry. Despite that, I was like, okay, I seem to have something here. And kind of immediately after that, I went through like a big breakup and had a chance to reevaluate my life goals a little bit, and was like, you know what? I'm gonna like really try running. I'm gonna get a coach, and I just want to like see what I can do within this scene. And so kind of that takes us to the beginning of 2022. and got a coach, a great coach here in Squamish, Scott McGuire, and set my sights on I was going to do Minotaur and I wanted to do WHAM, which is the Whistler Alpine Meadows 50K. And just had like an amazing year running and learning about the trail world and building confidence in myself and really starting to understand that I did have some talent, especially on the technical terrain that was just sort of like innate, you know, like I was just, we have this like joke at home. There's kind of groups of runners. There's like team track and team scramble. Team scramble is like, you know, the technical people that are always just like off doing 45-minute kilometers on some ridge, and then you have team track that actually can run and is clocking miles. And I was always kind of team scramble. And so I headed into Minotaur, and there was a bunch of international athletes that had come to that race. Rhea Coble and Georgia Tinley and Lindsay Webster was there and some others. And I ended up coming fourth and was just like, wow, didn't see that coming. But was pretty stoked on the whole experience, and running with those women was really inspiring for me. And then I sort of followed that up with WHAM, its last ever installment, which is where I met some of the US athletes. That was the first time I met like Ryan Becker for the first time, and Max King, and a bunch of others. And I ended up, so I won that and got the course record on it. And that was still probably one of my best performances to date, I would say. But between those two, for me, that was like complete proof of concept. And at that time, Minotaur, all you had to do to qualify for Sky Masters, which is like the skyrunning final for the year, is to come top 10 at one race. And then you got invited to the final, and you didn't get your travel paid for, but they put you up in a hotel for 3 days. And, you know, at the time I was working full-time as a corporate lawyer and doing this very much as a hobby, but I just was like, well, screw it. And went to Spain, had to like postpone my trip because I got COVID 2 weeks before, and went anyways, and didn't think I had any business being there, but ended up coming in sixth. And at that point I was like, wow, okay, maybe I do sort of belong here. Like I can actually race with these people. And then shortly after that, I was sitting on a ferry with a friend, and he posed a question to me that probably kind of changed the course of my life, which was, what would you do if you lost your job tomorrow and you couldn't go back to work for a year, but you were financially stable enough to kind of do what you wanted to do? What would you do? And I said, I'd go race in Europe. And he said, well, is it really the money that's stopping you?
Amazing question.
And so, sorry?
Amazing question, by the way.
Amazing question. I ask it to people all the time now because I think it's like, it's so revealing of, you know, yes, of course, there's real obligations and work is important, and not everybody has the financial means or like the life means to be able to just walk away from what they're doing for an extended period. But if you do, and you know, and you actually can afford that, man, is it like worth it? And so, yeah, I kind of went to my law firm, and by that time I knew that I had made the world's team in 2023. And I just said, like, look, I'm going to go do this. I need 6 months and I will come back, but I need 6 months unpaid. And if you say no, I totally understand, but I'll quit. And they were nice enough to say, okay.
I love that.
Very reluctantly to say okay to that request. And so, yeah, 2023 off I went, and I spent 6 months in Europe and raced Golden Trail and Skyrunner and had some good results, raced Worlds for the first time. And from then on, it's hard to make it just like a one season thing. And I sort of gave myself 3 years at that point and said, okay, let's prioritize this. This is a bit of a you only live once adventure, and let's just see what happens for 3 years and then we'll figure it out.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That is crazy. All right, so I have so many follow-up questions to this. The first one is all right, so I just get so stoked on this because I love seeing people follow their dreams and going after big things, like even when you had the proverbial golden handcuff. You're in a corporate law job. That's not an easy thing to leave. That takes some stones to be able to say, well, you know what, I like this better. I'm going to go, and life is short, and I'm going to go, I have some talent at this, and I'm going to go pursue this. What did they say to you at work? I mean, yes, you said they said, okay, go for it. But they must have looked at you like you had two heads, because most people that are, I mean, I get this because I work in corporate finance. If I was to go do that, people would be like, wow, like you're not I guess a career driven person or this, or it's very easy for someone to kind of put that label on you, if you will. And that must be very hard to do, or must have been very hard to do.
Yeah, I had already sort of blown up my law career a little bit. I had left the firm and gone in-house a couple years earlier, and then ended up going back to a big corporate law firm. So I had already sort of, started to build up this reputation of maybe not fitting the mold exactly. And luckily, I was also good at my job and had some specialized expertise, and some social capital. So, I think people were not totally shocked. But I mean, what ended up kind of happening is, like, yes, I did go back after that time, but law firms, like in corporate finance, are not known for being like the most accepting of alternative career paths. And that was kind of a one-time thing. Like, I got some time off the next summer to go again, but only a few weeks, and eventually just kind of had to leave that position. And yeah, that's a risk I was really willing to run, I guess. Like, I think office jobs will always be there for you. If you have a skill, like, maybe I couldn't go back to that exact law firm, but I have a skill and I had some financial security built up. And I don't think 80-year-old me would look back and say, wow, you really should have stayed in that office job instead of traveling around the world figuring out exactly how fast you can run up a mountain.
That's the tagline for this episode. I love that. And it's just so sad to me because, like, I come across, I have a lot of friends, and as you do as well, probably, that like are living that life of wishing they would have gone and done the things that like you just went and gone to do. And it's like, it's got to be a very freeing, less stressful life to do that. I don't know. I think that's pretty cool.
I don't know if it's less. I don't think it's less stressful, to be honest. Like, yeah, I was down in the city meeting with one of my old mentors from the law firm today, actually, and when I think back to that life, like it was much more simple. Like I knew what I was doing. I knew how it was going to progress and how to get ahead. And like I could just see my life ahead of me. It was easy to predict. Was it more fulfilling? No. Definitely not. But it's all life is stressful in different ways. Yeah. And I get to have some really amazing experiences in doing what I'm doing, but my career path is like far from certain, and there's financial instability and injury risk and all those other things. So, yeah, I don't know. Life is scary and hard no matter what you do, but you get to kind of pick what makes it scary and hard.
It's true. No matter which way you spin it, no matter what you pursue, there's always risk there. But like, I don't know, I just had a really good conversation with Alex King, who runs Terragnota, the startup brand. We were talking about risk. And I think it's such an important thing to like, just bet on yourself on something in life, because if you don't, like, you're going to get to the end. And I feel like you're going to be so disappointed if you don't just find at least something, bet on yourself, you know? And yeah, I don't know. That's the reason I asked this, is because I'm at that point in my life where I think about this stuff as well. And it's like, you know, golden handcuff or podcast or being an athlete or whatnot. And it's, you know, you kind of balance those things and what weighs more. And at the end of the day, it's all about spending the time that's the most fulfilling for yourself and spending it with the people that are going to, you know, fill your cup, proverbially. So.
Totally. It is kind of a scary place to be when you're standing at a crossroads, and you're never going to know what was on the other side of that crossroads, right? Like, I don't know what would have happened if I had continued to be a lawyer. I don't know, you know, what will happen in the future if I decide not to keep running or to keep running or move to Europe or stay in Canada or whatever. Like, yeah, it's just the decisions are never easy, but you just like pick a road and start running, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. And options are good. It's always good to have options, right?
Totally.
All right, so let's pivot a little bit. And I want to talk a little bit about 2025, which was another just like banger of a season for you. Like, I mean, I'm just going to summarize some of the things. I mean, you've got a long list, and I'll in the show notes, I'll link your Instagram so folks can give you a follow and learn more about your season. But 12th at Worlds in the short trail, which was crazy. It was your second time at Worlds. Second at Stranja Fjord, which is a super technical race. I do want to talk to you about the Armchair Traverse FKT, and I want to talk to you about Mount Marathon as well. Did you have a great time in Mount Marathon? That race is bananas. It looks so much fun.
Mount Marathon was awesome. Yeah. That race is just like fun. It's totally different from any race I've run.
Your fellow Squamish amigo over there, Jesse McCauley, has always had success at Mount Marathon. So I feel like that, you know, you guys, the Squamish folks, just know how to train for that race. You guys kind of have that dialed, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, Jesse and I went together, as well as his partner, Kat. I spent, the whole time there, like, sharing a bed with his mom, Lynn. So shout out to Lynn.
Shout out to Lynn.
But he totally showed me the ropes, and we like checked out the course together and scoped out the routes and
the cliffs.
You know, as most people know, in Mount Marathon, there's like a variety of routes that you can take to get up to the climb. And I just like loved the strategy of all that. The fact that you just like go out on a pack and then everybody just kind of splinters off. I thought that's such a fun and unique element, and people are, you know, taking off left and right, and the locals have their own like little secret routes. And I just thought it made it such a fun event, and really memorable for me. And I was super happy to be able to get on the podium there and just to have fun with it. Like, at one point in the race, I had some like maple leaves on my cheeks, and I was going up the climb, and some guy was like, oh, she's got like tears on her face, like tears tattooed on her face. And I was like, they're maple leaves. And he was like, why are you talking? You're not throwing hard enough. And I was like, fair enough. It's just like a fun race. So people are just drinking in the morning on the mountain and blasting music, and it's really unique. So it was a great experience.
I think it shows so much range for an athlete like you that you could produce at this high level at a 7 hour, 6.5, 5 hour race, but you can also go and hammer a less than an hour race and still have success on both ends. So I think that shows a lot of range for you as an athlete too, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, as long as the slopes are like 40% grade, I'm pretty good no matter the distance.
It's funny you say that. We have the Manitou incline in my backyard, and I go do the incline all the time, and it's like a 45% grade in some sections. And I just laugh because I'm like, damn, I've gotten so much more efficient at hiking, like power hiking.
Yeah.
But my uphill running like is at like 15%, for instance, like suffers so much because it's just a different like group of muscle systems. So I find that interesting. I don't know. I'm like a nerd about that stuff.
Yeah.
Let's talk armchair traverse FKT. I want to hear more about this because I've seen this like I've seen you tagged on a few things on Instagram on this. I've seen it like circulating around the internet. Talk about this armchair traverse.
Yeah, sure. So Armchair Traverse is up near Whistler. It's fairly technical. Like it starts off with this big climb, just up through the trails, up to this beautiful lake. And then from there, once you get up to the lake, you kind of head straight up to this ridge. And there's a technical ridge that, like a cirque that goes all the way around this lake. And then you have to come back down to the lake and go back down. So the armchair traverse is that whole thing from the bottom of the first climb all the way around the lake and back down. And it's like 25K. So what is that, like 15 miles?
Yep.
18
Close
miles, something
enough.
like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, like 2,400 meters of vert. So that's like 7,500 feet, I guess. But the kind of, the big section is this middle section, which is a scramble, a bunch of class 4 stuff. It's pretty exposed. You've got like a glacier on one side and the ridge on the other. And I had done this a couple times before, and it's my favorite route in the mountains in BC. It combines a lot of things I like. It's absolutely beautiful. And I already had the FKT on this route, but it was like, I had just like been out with friends, and I knew that I could lower it by a good amount. And at the time, the overall FKT on that was 423 from the men's. And one of my goals for last year was I wanted to take the overall FKT on armchair, because I kind of have learned at this point, the more technical the terrain, the better I do. I have like quite a high risk tolerance. I'm a decent climber, scrambler, and I just seem to move quite well through that stuff. So as I've gone through my trail running career, I've learned that like the Sierras and Alps are really not suited to my skill set, and the Quattro Refugios really are. So I was going out for this. Yeah, I was going out for this FKT. It was kind of a season goal, and there's a really short period of time when conditions are good on it. And so, I mean, fortunately, but unfortunately, my friend Brendan Morden, who's also an amazing runner, went out and took the men's FKT and shaved like 35 minutes off of it a couple weeks before I ran it, which made the overall more difficult to obtain. But I just kind of went out one day, slept in my friend's garage in Pemberton the night before, and showed up really excited to just put down a time on this route. Went really well. The scramble portion, which is about 45 minutes long, I ended up taking the overall on that section. And then I think what most people are impressed about on this route is my downhill, which is always a strength. But it was just a really good day out, and I kind of, that goal of doing that FKT sort of set me up for this year a little bit. There's a few other FKTs that I'm going to try to go for, all of them within this more technical mountainous terrain. And I think that there's just real potential to get the women's FKTs on some of these routes a lot closer to the men's. A la Terra Dower on the super long routes a little bit.
Yeah.
And show that, like when fitness is like only one component, actually women can do pretty dang well. In comparison. So yeah, that's kind of like the beginning of maybe a series of FKTs to come.
Ooh, this is a great segue. So where can you could talk about racing and FKTs. What are we going to see you at in 2026?
So I will be at some of the Sky Runner races. I'm going to head out to Europe for a few weeks in May and run Matisen, which is always a very competitive skyrunner race. And then I got an FKT or two to chase at the beginning of the summer around home. I'm going to Peru for another skyrunner race in June. And then I have a pretty big FKT goal in Europe that I'm not willing to share yet.
No, it's fine.
We'll see if that pans out. That'll be kind of August, and then I'll do Kima, and then we'll kind of see in September where things have lined up. The Skyrunner final is always really late in the season, in like November, so we'll see how my season has stacked up and how things look from there. But I'm looking forward to it this year. I think it'll be a nice mix.
I am so excited to see you at Kima. Are you stoked for that race? I mean, that's a bucket list race for me. I know it's every other year, so it's always hard to like kind of plan things ahead of time. But yeah, we'll talk about your stoke level for that race.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody is running Kima this year from the sounds of it. Yeah. Like, I haven't seen like an official start list. I don't think anybody's registered yet, but I saw Emily Forsberg is running it. Elise Ponset is running it. I think Hillary might be running it again. So it's going to be a hard race to do well at. There's actually quite a bit of flat at Kima, the beginning and the end. But it's such an iconic race. And my experience with doing iconic races thus far is that they are all iconic for a reason and a lot of fun. So I am just excited to experience it and to get out there and play on the chains and the limestone. It's a really unique environment, and there's always lots of fans, which makes it a lot of fun. So it's always fun when you're lining up against like some of the best women in the sport. It's just kind of a pinch me moment.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be, like I said, I've not looked at the start list yet, but that's crazy to think that everybody's going to be there, and it's going to be a big dance this year, which will be super fun.
Yeah, totally.
How do you like living in Squamish? This is a question I actually had for you for the beginning of the show, and I just didn't get a chance to ask you it. But yeah, how do you like living and training out of Squamish? Just because I feel like everybody, that's like the scene in the Pacific Northwest / like Canadian running scene. I'll let you take it away from there.
Yeah, I mean, Squamish is great. Squamish as a training ground is great. I mean, if you're a road runner, probably don't come here. Our track is gravel and usually covered in puddles or snow. We do not have good road running. But if you are a mountain runner, it has some of the best terrain in the world. And some of the best alpine terrain in the summer. I mean, you can climb peaks as much as you can here, as you can in Canmore during our alpine season. We have amazing mountain bike trails to run on, everything from, you know, smooth and rolly to extremely like janky, loamy, unsanctioned trails that just crisscross our mountains and go up and down and everywhere. I think it's a unique scene because you have this crossover of a bunch of sports, right? Like you have the climbers that come here, you have the mountain bikers that come here, you have the runners that are here, skimo athletes, you have all these different groups, and occasionally you'll get pretty cool crossovers. A friend of mine puts on this race once a month at the end of every month called the it's kind of short tagged as the VK, but it's at 7 o'clock at night. He puts together the most convoluted routes that he can think of. They drop a week before the event, and it attracts this like unique group. You get some of the mountain bikers that come out, you get some climbers, you get some like very high level runners, and you know, you take off from some undisclosed location and everybody will get lost. There's like a Halloween event where they'll like burn an effigy up on top of some mountain. And I think it's really emblematic of like the Squamish trail community. Like people are in Squamish because they want to be in the mountains and they want to be in the trails and amongst these people that have a passion for the outdoors. And so, yeah, we might not have like the track club, or we might not have, you know, all of the professionalism of some communities like Boulder or Chamonix or wherever, but there's a really strong culture here of people getting after it, and I love it. I love being part of that, and I love being able to kind of move between the climbing and the paragliding and biking and running, and have people getting after it in all those different aspects.
I haven't heard a person say a negative thing about it. I got to check it out. It's like I got to throw. That's another one I got to throw on the list. Is get up there and check it out. It looks pretty cool. A lot of climbers.
Yeah, you'll have Canadian hospitality.
Yeah, I know Jesse. I've already talked to. I've had Jesse on the podcast before, and he was, and same with Adam Campbell. They're like, you got to check this place out. So it's on the list.
Totally.
You had mentioned paragliding with like hiking your paragliding stuff up. Do you paraglide?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Talk about this. That's kind of an extreme sport. Like that seems. You want to talk about risk? That's risky, or it seems like it at least. I don't know.
I mean, I've been hurt worse running than I have paragliding so far. So, like, knock on wood. But
okay.
Yeah, I mean, paragliding and specifically hike and fly, so hiking up mountains and then flying off of them, basically, is a lot bigger in Europe than it is here. And I had several friends that were in the skyrunner community that paraglided, who had kind of been like, you got to get a paraglider, you have to go and do this. And so last year, actually, I kind of finally carved out some time right after Mount Marathon. I like got off the plane from Mount Marathon and went into the interior of BC and did my paragliding course. And then it was on the way home that I did the armchair from that course. And then headed back to Europe and had like a wing bought and a harness bought, and I was like ready to go and fly. And a lot of my training last year, I did so many uphills with that thing, just like dragging it up the VK in Chamonix and flying off and just getting experience in this new sport. And the feeling of flying is incomparable to many others. Like, it's so peaceful once you're up there. You see these mountains from a different perspective. And I've really enjoy just being able to go from zero in a sport to having very just rapid improvement. Like, you don't start that many new things as an adult. And the satisfaction of getting better at something and progressing um, was really nice. It's been like a great addition to my life. The paragliding community is awesome and welcoming, and um, yeah, I've been really stoked on it in the past year, and I think it's only encouraged me to walk uphill more. So I don't think it's taken away from my training much at all either.
So cool. I mean, it's interesting because I've come across quite a few runners that have kind of like transitioned. I wouldn't like to doing this extra sport, and it's another thing that everybody just seems to love. Like Jason Hardrath is kind of big into it. There's quite a few folks that are really interested in it. So, and it's starting to catch on more in Colorado. I'm starting to see like way more people do it between like Boulder and the Front Range. So that's really cool.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, it's awesome too for the body because yeah, you're hiking up something like relatively heavy, and then you don't have any destruction of the legs on a descent because you just get to fly off, which is
Exactly.
pretty dope. So
Yeah, it's like uphill treadmill, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, and the flying part is crazy. Like that's yeah, I don't know.
The flying part's crazy.
How hard was it to learn? Like, was it difficult, especially like initially? Did you have any like trepidations, like trying to learn the whole thing and go through the courses? What was that pretty straightforward or?
Um, I think it's a lot less dangerous than maybe people perceive it to be. The wings just like want to fly. Like, once you're in the air, unless you're in super bumpy air, it's very easy to fly them. So the biggest thing that you're learning is how to take off and how to land safely. And a big part of that is just like backcountry skiing or any other sport where there's a weather component of, like, if you make conservative good decisions, it's not very dangerous. It becomes dangerous when you make risky decisions. So a lot of learning to paraglide is really just getting better at making decisions and having better judgment about, okay, is this a reasonable place to take off? Where am I going to land? What's the wind doing? What is it going to be doing in 15 minutes? And I was really lucky to have that time in Europe last year and to be able, there's so much more infrastructure for paragliding in Europe and so many more just like fields. Like, we have a lot of trees. Like, there's no like bailout zone when you're like flying over this like valley full of trees. And in Europe, everything's a bailout zone. There's just like fields everywhere. Um, so I was able to practice a lot of that, like, okay, hike up here. Where am I going to land? How do I figure that out? What's the wind doing? What's manageable? And just get a lot of repetition. And so when I came back home, although the conditions are a little bit more difficult and you're jumping off, the Chief or mountain launches, I felt like I had enough confidence to go for it. And luckily I have some like patient and fairly sandy friends that uh, would take me out and throw me off cliffs. So yeah.
Do you have any plans for like, I don't know necessarily like FKTs, but faster? I know we were talking about risk there before, but I was like incorporating this off of like big mountains. Like the first time I learned about it was like Cedar Right, like hiking up Pico de Orizaba and like flying off the top of it. And like, obviously that's the most extreme version possible, but is there any plans to like try and do some crazy stuff like that to kind of implement that and with maybe training or like fastest known times and stuff like that?
I don't have any FKT plans for it right now. I'd love to fly off Mont Blanc this year just for fun. But what I would like to use it as is when I'm kind of scoping some of these bigger FKTs, to be able to use it as a bit of an exit without having to, run a long ways down. There's Well, I can say one of the FKTs that I would like to do this year is in Squamish. It's called the Tantalus Traverse. And it's this, you have to do a river crossing, and it's very technical, glaciated terrain, a lot of scrambling. There's a few rappels involved and stuff. But there's this hut in the middle of it, and it actually has they always have a wind flag, which means like it's kind of a de facto launch. And you can fly from there across the river all the way back to town. Much more efficient than the alternative. And so I'm really excited about being able to use it in those kind of capacities. And yeah, we have we have a wine and fly club in Squamish. So a bunch of people will hike up to the top of a mountain in the summer, and everybody brings a bottle of wine. And then you get up early in the morning when the wind is calm and everybody flies home. And stuff like that
That's
is
cool.
just like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of what I do it for. I don't need to be performance in everything, and paragliding's one that's kind of just for fun.
No, I like that. I like that. All right, so we're almost at an hour. I got one last question for you. As far as like free agency goes, like you got to be one of the biggest like free agents in the game right now. You got to be talking to brands. Like, are you in that process right now, or like kind of? Is there any announcements soon at some point in time for sponsors, or?
Don't hold your breath on any
Okay.
announcements. No. Oh yeah, that's kind of its own. I would say that's its that's its own discussion.
Okay.
Um, no. So yeah, I mean, if there's brands out there listening, hit me up. I I think maybe my background as a lawyer puts me in an interesting position in this. I listened to your skyrunning episode recently,
Oh no.
and well, one of the things that you were talking about was like, whether athletes kind of know what everybody else is making and like what their own worth is. And I thought that was a super interesting discussion. And I would say I have a pretty good knowledge of what a lot of people are making, and the disparity between Canadian athletes and European athletes and American athletes is like quite large.
Yep.
Canadian athletes tend to get very little in comparison. And yeah, I think I would love to have a sponsor and to have that backing, but I'm also not willing to sign myself away for free shoes. Like, there's lots of ways that athletes can make a little bit of money in this sport. Things like, paid photo shoots for brands. And I'm lucky to have a skill that I can make some money off on the side. And so, yeah, I mean, offers have never flown in for me for whatever reason, but I'm also, yeah, I think that brands should be supporting athletes in a fair way, and some people are getting great deals, and I think there's a lot of people that are taking very little and are getting very little in exchange. And from a principled perspective, I just don't really see enough benefit in being one of them. So whether that puts me on brands kind of, you know uh, bad side, at this point, I'm just kind of like, well, I'm kind of just gonna do what I want, and if it feels right, great. But otherwise, um, I'll keep dipping into my savings to make it happen.
No, I think, listen, I mean, so many questions I can bring off this, but I think the first one, first and foremost, is it's so important to have values and have the high standards, like in the sense of knowing your worth, because I do agree, and I agree very strongly with this. A lot of athletes will take deals not knowing their worth or not having an agent or a lawyer negotiate it, will take significantly less, and that does bring down the pot for proverbially a lot of others, and that's why we see all this disparity as well. My question to you is on the NDA side, especially as a lawyer. Like, do you think we can ever get around this NDA stuff? Like, is there any way that brands will start being more transparent in pay. And because I think once we break that down and get more transparency on that end, that's when we'll start to see more, I guess, just more equality in the money all around, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because in Europe, there seems to be a lot more standardization of what people are getting and a lot more, people kind of know, like, if you're here, this is sort of what you get. And like, that's been the case since I've started racing in Europe, that it did seem more open to me. And I knew from the beginning what people at my level were getting. And like, I can sort of be open about that. Like, it was in 2023, people around my level. So like, I've increased from there. We're making about €10,000 a year. And in the US and Canada, that was not the case and is still not the case. And so I don't know that the NDAs are really the problem, to be honest. Like, I think there's enough information out there. But I think the problem maybe is more like, even though that's the case, people are still taking really bad deals. I think there's people want to be sponsored. I totally get that. Like, I have, at times been like, man, I just want the legitimacy of a logo on my chest.
Yeah.
And some people really need the $5,000 in travel to be able to make this happen for themselves. And if they don't get it, then they just can't go to UTMB. And I totally get that. And if I was 23, maybe I would just like take whatever as well, because it's exciting and it gives you that little bit of momentum, and that's awesome. But I'm in the unique position of having a little bit of like self-funding, and I just think if everybody's taking bad deals, and the brands are going to give you a bad deal. Yeah. You're in corporate finance, I'm in law, like, this is a business proposition. Like, I know I could get a better sponsor if I put more effort into my Instagram, but I don't feel like that's the best use of my 20 hours a week. Yeah. I could just spend, So I think I look at it from a very realistic business perspective, and having been in-house at a retail company that deals with influencers and stuff. And I know what the brands are getting out of athletes and how much money they're making off of us. And I understand the constraints of that. And for me personally, I'm just like, from a principle perspective, even if everybody else is taking, a certain deal, if I don't feel like it's a fair representation of what I'm worth or of the value that the brand is getting, like, then I'd rather just not have a deal.
No, I stand with you on that one. I definitely, I really agree with everything you say. It's tricky. It's complicated in the sport now, because like you said, and it's multi-country, multi-continent, to where, athletes in Canada versus the United States versus Europe. It's, yeah, I don't know. And some brands like ACG pay a shit ton now. It's kind of crazy.
Totally.
And then you'll see other brands that just don't even come close. So that's the other thing too. I wonder if now with the more market players entering the fold, like ACG, and even Hoka and brands like that paying more, I wonder how much that will raise things up too from, push brands, because athletes are just going to leave if they can get more in another brand. Like, why would you stay? It doesn't make sense. So I wonder how that's going to, and I also wonder too, if more agents entering the sport hopefully can negotiate and help athletes learn their worth more. I think that's a big conversation that needs to be had, because you take your average 25-year-old runner, they don't know, like, they have no idea what their worth is. And if you have 5,000-10,000 followers on Instagram, that's a lot of marketing power for you to bring to, that you'll be able to give back in value. So yeah, it's we could do a whole podcast on this.
Totally. And there's, I think, outside of like the ACG and the Brooks and that, there's now starting to be other players like Kailas Fuga and
Yeah.
some of the Asian brands coming in. And then you have to compare, you know, like, well, what do you want from this brand? Do you want money? Do you just like want some money thrown at you? Or does, you know, the having access to like team camps with really good athletes and testing and, you know, logistics at UTMB and the experience of people on the team, like, what do you really want from this partnership? And some people want the money, and some people will say, I'll take half the money if I can get access to Killian and be with Normal. So yeah, it's starting to be a more dynamic space, I think. And I'm interested to see where it goes. But I think the realities of the market are always going to be a factor. And the fact that Canada is a small market and there's not even people who don't even have offices in Canada is always going to make it more difficult for Canadian athletes to get the same offers that, you know, our American and European counterparts are getting. That's kind of like been my experience, and I don't know if it's going to change anytime soon, unfortunately.
It's interesting, and I know we're kind of limited on time here, but and I don't want to go too far off the subject, but I did have a great conversation with Josh about Worlds and about investment from Canada into Team Canada. Like this year, like you guys had a medal team. Women are absolutely crushing it. Like all the teams did really well for Team Canada this year at the World Mountain Running Championship. Do you think there'll be more investment from Canada kind of into that team going forward?
Canada's like, I mean, I don't want to go off on a tangent too much about this, but like basically Canada's sports system is pretty low funded generally. Like the American system gets a lot of private donations. I've like done some work in sport policy, and there's just not much money to go around in Canada. Like Olympians are living off $300 a month in sport stipends in Canada. There's just not a lot of sport funding. And because of the way the system is set up, unless you're in an Olympic sport, it's really difficult to access some of the funding that's available. So I think the people at Athletics Canada that are responsible for trail running are great and are doing everything that they can to support us. But do I think that there's going to be a significant increase in funding? No, I don't. I think that's the reality of it. And I appreciate everything Athletics Canada is doing with what they have. And I think they're being thoughtful and they're including us in the process. And I think we will see some increased support, even in just, you know, whether it's, okay, where can we have this funding, how can we best allocate it in the off years, like Josh was talking about. But just, you know, just like New Zealand, just like Great Britain, like almost, I would say, aside from 5 countries at Worlds, everybody else was like scraping by, buying their own travel. Like there's very few countries that are well funded in trail running. And until it becomes like a national priority, which like is not really going to happen, I think that's just what you're stuck with. And that's fine. Like, you know, it is what it is. And you can do a lot with a little, you know, there's like, we all banded together and rented a house for 10 days. And yeah, that was coming out of our pocket, but like, we were still there. We still got to check out the trails. Like, I don't know. I think there's, would I love more money? Yeah, sure. But we'll make it happen. Canada will make it happen. I mean,
you guys showed up, man, like in a big way. It was a great year for you guys. And yeah, to your point, like, I had Jackson Cole on the podcast, and he's a New Zealander, and having to pay, I mean, they paid like for everything. I was just like, man, like that's difficult. To have to pay for everything is crazy. Like, and it's crazy because like the Americans complain, and like and there's some legitimate complaints there compared to other sports, but like what other sports get, but like we don't have anything to complain about when you're comparing it to like New Zealand, and that's got to pay their own way for pretty much everything, and for their uniforms. It's like, what the heck? It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did get our uniforms paid for, so shout out to Athletics Canada on that.
Kalie, I think this is a great conversation. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I can't wait for round two. I really appreciate your insights into the sport and, you know, talking the contract stuff, and then about your resume. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. And yeah, I can't wait to see what the future holds for you as you continue this dominance in the sport. So appreciate it.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm glad we got a chance to chat, and thanks so much for your support of all of us out there and having the Canadian runners on. And I hope to talk to you soon. Hopefully, we'll have some good results to share later this year. I'd love to chat again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. We're done recording. Thank you so much. Like I said,